how do you see emptiness directly? Like if somebody said, Rio, the key to everything being awesome. You don't have to answer. You started to look totally scared. I just wait, I got this. There's always a bias of looking one direction, and I wanted to because they're over here, and anyway. If somebody said the key to being happy is to go to realize see emptiness directly, to realize emptiness. So go to a cabin and go see emptiness. So if we hear that, and then we go to a cabin and start doing what? What do you start, if you hear that, what do you start meditating on?
The empty cabin.
Nothing. Nothingness. Just think no thoughts. Just sit here, clear your head, and think no thoughts.
That'll make me empty.
That kind of a meditation, because that's emptiness. No thoughts, right? That's what that kind of leads to. So interestingly, emptiness is a negative thing. Not a bad thing. It's not a good bad, but it's an absence of something. So, look at this cup, and because here's another thing that is an absence. Here's a cup. This is a positive thing. Look at the space that this cup operates in, the space that this cup takes, the volume of this cup, and then continue looking there. I'm going to remove the cup. Keep looking at this space, and is the space still there? And is the space changed? It's occupied. It's unoccupied. But this volume of space, it's still there, right? And there's an absence, there's always an absence of an obstruction in this space. Even if it's occupied, that space is still available. That's why the cup can be there, right? And if the space is just there now. So, but when we go looking, I don't know if I can tie it together. That's just a cool thing to think about. And emptiness is actually quite the same as that. When we go looking for the emptiness of something, we have to know emptiness is an absence, and it's an absence not of a thing. People exist, you exist, pens exist, cushions exist, cars exist, people exist, your feelings about things exist, your emotional responses to things exist, the pain in your life exists, the pain in other people's life exists. Emptiness is not a negation of any of these things. Everything exists. Emptiness is a negation of the people that exist self-existently, the pain that exists self-existently, the suffering that exists self-existently, the pen that exists self-existently. What would that mean? That would mean it was a pen no matter who was looking at it, no matter what kind of being was looking at it. When Fido comes in, Fido would grab it in his mouth and try to write something on the board because Fido would see a pen up here. If the quality pen was in the object, that is what Fido would try to do with it. But because it's not, because the quality unlikable, think about the person you can't stand. You work with them, they're there, they're just a thorn in your side, they're a cliché, they're a bothersome object. So they're there. Like, it feels like that irritatingness is just coming from them, right? But then somebody that you know likes them. And I know. And then you try to convince, you don't know the real them. No, let's go out to lunch. I need to tell you what this person has done and what they're really like. And then you won't like them either. Because we think that we've got the corner on the market of reality, of the details of who this person is, particularly when it's somebody we don't like. And most especially if it's somebody we're jealous of, right? We think we know the way that they truly are. But the fact is, somebody else loves them. Somebody else thinks they're fine, thinks they're great, thinks they're funny. You think they're irritating, somebody else thinks they're funny. That's just like that, because irritating and funny is not coming from the person. So when we want to find the emptiness of the person, there is an irritating person for you, right? Emptiness is not trying to convince ourselves that this person isn't irritating. They are irritating. But how are they irritating? Or why are they irritating? They're irritating to me because I've been irritating to somebody else in the past. And when I look at them, this image of irritatingness pops up on top of them. Sorry. I'm supposed to be better as a teacher and never do the irritating thing. You're supposed to go like this, like to some other person, so nobody in the room takes it personally. Yeah,
I'm over it.
Whatever.
It's all good.
No, I'm irritating. It's okay. Okay, so when we're looking for the emptiness, when we want to see the emptiness, we have to figure out what it is that we're actually looking. We have to know what the opposite of emptiness is, which is the self-existent object. Some of you are like, God, this is a long build-up, which is the gotcha. The gotcha is the self-existent object. And this is the thing that does not exist. It has never existed, and we believe that it exists. And because we believe that it exists, we suffer. The gotcha is the self-existent object, and it's the opposite of emptiness. What emptiness is an absence of the self-existent object. So in order to find out emptiness, we have to know what the self-existent object looks like. Because in an ordinary way, if I said to you, is Ami in this room? What do? How do you do, but what does your mind do? It thinks of the person Ami, the qualities, and you don't even need to look around because you know you haven't heard her voice and you haven't seen her, but your mind just does a really quick scan and it's like, no, she's not in the room. Because you go looking for the thing. But you have to have a picture of what you're looking for. So if I said, if you were in a big crowded room and I said, is John Smith in the room? You're like, well, I know 10% of the people here, and I don't know what John Smith looks like, so I can't tell you if John Smith's in the room, because you don't know what to go looking for, right? So emptiness is that same thing. You need to know what the self-existent object would look like if it were to exist. We need to know what the self-existent object does look like to my deceived mind, which thinks things are self-existent. And then I go looking for that thing. When I realize and prove to myself that it does not exist, I have a perception of emptiness, of the absence of the self-existent person. And that's emptiness.
So when we're talking about its existence,
What's
what I'm
existence?
feeling is that we're not talking so much about the physical existence of the thing you hold in your hand, but of our perception of its physical existence. So I would see that thing in your hand, and if I had the experience of knowing it as a pen, I would perceive it as a pen. But if I'd never seen the thing you had in your hand before, I wouldn't know what it was. The thing is physically there.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, when we talk about them not existing, if we're talking about our perception of the thing, not the physical being of it.
Yeah.
I needed that clarification in my head for some reason.
In the highest schools, you keep going down further, and at each level, you'll unpack it.
Because when you asked if Ami was in the room, I immediately went to, of course she is. Look at
Right.
And so it was interesting for me to think about that for a minute, because I knew physically she wasn't here, but my perception of her existence is always here.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So in order to see any qualities, that quality has to exist, or that
May I say again?
in order to see anything, like that object, the qualities of that object should exist for me to see that. So just like that example of John and Ami, when you say, is Ami there? I can look, and then I see Ami, when it's there. And you say John Smith, I don't know John, so John Smith doesn't exist in my mind, but Ami exists. So that applies to other qualities also.
Yeah.
And that applies to everything.
Yeah. Cool. So the gotcha is the self-existent object. That is what does not exist, and we need to go looking for it. I want to make sure I'm not missing something.
It doesn't have to be an object though, right? It could be like an idea or a...
Yeah, totally. No, we're not talking
A
physical
feeling or
necessarily at all. The irritatingness in the irritating person. Seems like it's a quality resident in the person. Seems like it's self-existently there, no matter how I look at them, no matter what. It seems like the irritatingness is in them and it's coming from them, right? So I need to go looking for this independent quality of irritatingness that has nothing to do with the beholder. Right? That doesn't have anything to do with me, the one looking at it, or everybody else being the ones looking at it, or anything like that. Yeah. Any other questions about this? So,
Super funny, like, say like when you learn about emptiness and karma, then it makes you, if you understand it, you should feel compelled to like clean up your own act, right? Like, oh, I need to start being kind and stuff. And then it's funny, like, that's the solution for the problem if you are understanding emptiness. And if you believe in the Gokja and self-existence, then you would go against, like the Pratimoksha, you would go against non-harming. You'd be like, well, let me remove this object that's creating disharmony for me by, I don't know, hurting them or something like that, so they're not there anymore, like an enemy.
absolutely. I mean, our country, somebody bombs us, somebody bombs a building, and then we think, in believing in the self-existent evil person out there that came in and attacked the innocent me over here, we think if we go out and annihilate this person, we're getting rid of the enemy. So there's a certain logic. If you're caught in ignorance and caught in believing that the qualities are in the people, because there's no doubt that the taking down of the Twin Towers was an evil, destructive act. That's not a question. But if we think that the person who did that is self-existently from their own side an evil, destructive person, it's natural. Well, let's just annihilate them and get rid of them, right? And then there'll be that evil person who wants to hurt others and do bad things will be gone. But the problem is that evil person that wants to hurt others and do bad things is coming from a habit in my mind. So it's the total samsara perpetuation. To have that happen to me and have it be deeply painful came from a habit in my mind in the first place. And so by retaliating in that way, I just spin the wheel again for more to happen. And that's what was so amazing about the peace movement of Martin Luther King based on the peace movement of Mahatma Gandhi, which was that he, in the face of great wrong, he committed. His whole thing was about satyagraha, which is an act of truth, which is like, no, violence begets violence, period. How? Because I've been violent. In my heart are seeds for violence. And so when I experience other people, what pops open when I look at them is violent, is mean, is harm, enemy, people controlling my world, right? Because I've been violent in the past. That was all planted there by me at some other point, being violent and mean and hurting other people. And so if in response to this, which is a story in my own mind, a holographic image coming out, it's real, it's incredible suffering, it's incredible pain, it's horrific that thousands of people died. It's a real thing, but it's not coming from this person out there. That quality is not inherent in that. And so that's how it cycles. By believing that this thing I see is just witnessing what's happening out there rather than witnessing, the response of my own mind. So Mahatma Gandhi, in response to seeing this, it was that this moment, what I'm going to do, in response to seeing old things, my people being brutally mistreated, I'm going to respond by planting seeds of kindness back in my back. And it's so beautiful, standing up for what I believe in. Standing up for what is true, what is right, being willing to be beaten, being willing to be imprisoned, being willing to do whatever, in the belief that what is true, in the knowledge that if I can respond to all sorts of violence with kindness, with openness, and stay open in the presence of great violence and great injustice, in the end, what will happen is all violence will get wiped out. That's the way to actually end violence. Right? So we're so blessed to have this example, and we're so blessed to have it work out right, because it seems like there's so many times when really great leaders, including Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, end up getting assassinated, and it's just so heartbreaking to see that. But he freed the country first, Jesus, they don't, okay.
People like to kill them.
Yeah.
Well, and it's still our ignorance to think that their acts of truth cause their demise.
Yeah,
Whereas
totally. No,
what's
that's
something
that's
that had
us
it
making
going
some
from-
kind of a
yeah.
connection that's unfortunate. For us, it's unfortunate to make that connection. Yeah. So the gakcha, the self-existent object. I wish I had more to say about that, because I know. Is there any other questions? Because it's a big thing.
like the whole point that it's like the object that we think exists, that never did exist.
Yeah.
I like that as a part of it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not just because I'm looking at things this way that it's possible they exist this way. It's
Yeah.
like they've always existed this way.
Yeah.
It's never been any different. It's just that I've learned how they that part's cool.
I'm in Kunzop Dempa, I'm in deceptive reality, where the way that it actually is and the way that I perceive it do not match each other. I'm deceived. And therefore I suffer, because I respond wrongly to everything all the time. To greater or lesser degrees, but to some degree. Yeah, cool. And again, why is it important to identify the object it's called the object we deny. The object we deny. Why is it important? Because only through knowing what the object that we deny looks like can we go looking for that object and then encounter its absence. Discover that in fact it doesn't exist and it never has existed, and go looking for it. Gish always said, the gotcha is like a rampaging purple two-headed elephant in this room right now. Like, are they in this room? And we don't even need to look around, because, well, not only if there was an elephant here, it would be obvious. We would have noticed. But it's purple and two-headed, so we know that it doesn't even exist and it never has existed. And that's the gotcha. Oh, one thing I love, so Gishla always says, when you're failing half the time, you're right in the ballpark.
Mhm.
That's when, like, you're rocking it, when you're failing half the time. I mean, how does it feel to fail? I failed yesterday. I was, like, grumpy, and then I took it out on everyone around me, and that's like a failure, right? That's planting seeds of having more negativity in the future. It's this whole cycle of failure. But, like, he's saying we're really right on when we're failing half the time. When half of your days are spent going, oh, that sucked, I wish I'd done that differently. And it doesn't feel like it. Like, at those times, I don't feel like a spiritual practitioner. I feel like a failure, right? So it's interesting to, like, keep that in mind 50% of the time. And I think part of the reason is when I've just blown it is when I really get in touch with myself, like the self-existent idea. Like, so I'm okay yelling at my husband and my daughter. I regret that for a little while. But when I behave badly in front of, like, the receptionist at Drome School, then it's just flat out embarrassing. My, like, self-existent, prideful, like, picture of what I want Brandy to think about me has just become jeopardized. And that's really honestly why I was obsessing over it all day. Not because I felt bad that I'd hurt somebody's feelings or create a bad day or create a bad karma, but because I looked bad. I looked bad. And that was, so it's like every time we fail, every time someone accuses us of something, anytime like that, it's getting in touch with the self-existent ego kind of me that I'm kind of trying to buoy up and create all the time. Does that make sense? Maybe I was going off on it in my notes. I don't know. I don't remember where I was going off on in my notes. Yeah. In our mistakes, in our failures, we see the self-existent me that I cling to so desperately. Because when everything's fine, and things are going well and my behavior is going well, I just don't see that. I don't see that. But in the failure moments is really when I kind of like, there's the angst is around not, somehow that's, I don't know. Now it's not striking me whatever I was thinking of before. So let's go on.
I feel like you're pointing at the ego, like it is making you notice your idea of like the optimal Brandy that
Yeah.
like you want to be.
And the ego
But that
is like a
doesn't ever
fantasy
exist.
construct of who I
Exactly.
am. And when it gets blown out and it's like the proof is not, the data that's coming in is not actually upholding this ideal perfect Brandy that I want so desperately to see myself as, then there's this like